one.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson, touchdown.
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive. Johnson right.
Sportscall.
Oh, what a dunk.
Call in now at 887-3401-MOKAMI.
Right through, he got it.
Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll free.
Struck him out.
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains, Sportscall.
Hello, everyone, and good Wednesday afternoon. My name is Andy Graham, alongside my partner, Randy Lee, bringing you the latest edition of Sports Call. We appreciate all of you out there joining us this afternoon. We would love to hear from you, hear what's on your mind. Give us a call at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our Auburn Opelika Tourism Hotline. Randy and I will be with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls and discussing everything relevant in the world of sports. Of course, focusing on Auburn Athletics as we do nearly about every day. This is Sports Call Auburn. You can also listen to us on 93.9 The Tiger or sportscallauburn.com. You can check us out on our Facebook page, or you can just send us a tweet at SportsCallAU. We'd love to interact with you, hear from you any way you choose, but we'd love to hear from you in person. 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free, locally 334-887-3401. We've got a great show planned for you today at 4:30. Justin Ferguson will be joining us from the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer, talk a little bit about this past week, Auburn versus LSU, and talk a little bit about this upcoming week, another game of the year, game of the century type between Auburn and Mississippi State, number 2 versus number 3. I think Gus Malzahn, this is his maybe 20th game as head coach of Auburn, and about half of them have been a game of the year type situation. Sports Call today is brought to you by Always Money. Always Money offers title loans, cash advance loans, Western Union services, and they buy your gold. Visit one of their many convenient locations or visit them on the web at alwaysmoney.com. Always Money. Easy, convenient, friendly, and fast. Well, the St. Louis Cardinals defeated the Los Angeles Dodgers 3-2 last night. Another nail-biter. The Cardinals continue just in the last decade or last 4 or 5 years to continue to be one of those teams that knows how to win close games. They eliminate the Dodgers. The Giants defeated the Nationals 3-2. Again, the Giants, 2 World Series in the last 5 years, looking like they're a great possibility to go back to play for yet another one this year. They eliminate Washington last night in San Francisco. The ALCS begins Friday night. The Royals will be at the Orioles, 7 p.m. on TBS. The NLCS begins the next night, Saturday night, with the Giants traveling to St. Louis to take on the Cardinals, 7 p.m. on Fox. Our question of the day, we're carrying it over with really our question of the week. You know, what is your most memorable Auburn versus Mississippi State game? And, Randy, this is not really a rivalry. It never really has been. And in the 80s, Pat Dye was hired in 1981. He lost to Mississippi State that year. But pretty much after that went on a run and just dominated Mississippi State. I think he lost in 91 and 92. But those are down years for Auburn. And really, when you think about it, Mississippi State is a kind of team, at least in the last 20, 25 years, that Auburn expects to beat 8 out of every 10 years. So really the ones that are most memorable to me are the losses. And when I go back and I think about it, and there was a period there from 1997 to 2000 where Auburn lost 4 in a row to Mississippi State. And quite frankly, a lot of those 4 games are some of the most memorable ones to me.
Well, and unfortunately, they were when I was in school all 4 of those years, and Auburn never defeated Mississippi State in some of the ugliest losses in Auburn history. If you go back to that 1997 game, that's one that you and I both remembered right off the bat. Mississippi State takes down Auburn 20-0. If you're looking for a game that Damian Craig did not play well in, and during that era, by the way, if Damian Craig didn't play well, Auburn's offense didn't play well because we had very, very little to go around him. We did have some little pieces to go around with him, but Damian Craig was the majority of the offense. Lose 20-0 that afternoon, not on television. Remember that clearly. Damian Craig was 20 of 54 passing. That's what we needed to do. 270 yards passing, but he had 4 interceptions, and it was a defensive output for Mississippi State. That just started off 97, 98, 99, 2000. Mississippi State took it to us. We won't bring up Jackie Sherrill during that stretch. We know that he is. Did I hear correctly that Dan Mullen with 40 victories is the third? He has the third highest win total in Mississippi State history. Did I hear that correctly?
That sounds right. I don't know. I have to look that up, but that sounds right.
Did I say it right?
I think so.
Did I mean it correctly? Let me reiterate it. He's got 40 victories and he's third all time. Is that what that program is?
Well, they've never won a national title. This is number 3 is the highest they've ever been ranked in their history. They've been a mediocre program for a long, long time.
You look down through here, Pat Dye was 9-3. Those 3 losses, 81, 91, and 81, 91, and 92. Terry Bowden was 4-2. He lost those 2 in 97 and 98. Tommy Tuberville, 7-3. Lost the first couple that he was involved in, 99 and 2000. Didn't lose again until 2007. Gene Chizik, 3-1, lost 1 in 2012. And Gus Malzahn now 1-0. So that's in the era that we can remember back to the Pat Dye days. And Auburn has really ruled the roost here in this series outside of those 4 years.
Yeah, and going back, 1999 is one that stands out to me pretty clearly. Yeah, and again, it's one of those in that stretch there. Auburn, first year under Tommy Tuberville, they take a 16-0 lead in this game, and Mississippi State kicks a field goal really, really late, less than a minute to play, I think, in the third quarter. So Auburn has a 16-3 lead going to the fourth quarter, and Matt Wyatt, who is Matt Wyatt? Nobody knows, but he was a quarterback at Mississippi State. Matt Wyatt, of all people, leads a comeback and scores 15 points in the last, I think, 2.5 minutes of that game, including a safety. I think Auburn had a safety, ended up punting it back, and he ends up throwing a touchdown late. It was supposed to be that first signature win for Tommy Tuberville, and it just turned into just one of those you just want to vomit. I mean, it just a crushing defeat where, we thought – and Auburn goes 5-6. That could have sent them to a bowl game. I mean, you think back that 99 – my goodness, I'm getting upset about it now.
Matt White, the color analyst for Mississippi State. We had him on our program last night for Sports Blitz. Had him on several different years now, and he does an outstanding job. But I guess that's his claim to fame is that comeback victory, and you won't forget that. But 1999, again, those 4 years, you look down, and since Pat Dye, we've lost, 5, 8, 9 games, 4 of those in concession, all the way back to 81. So, and many of the wins for Auburn have been in the blowout variety in this series. And I just don't believe it this Saturday, and that's what we'll talk about. Look, as long as you want to call in on this program and talk about Auburn Athletics, we can find nothing better than talking about Auburn at this point in time. Andy, if you and I can't find something to talk about on Sportscall Auburn right now in the middle of football season with Auburn ranked number 2 in most polls, number 1 in some, then we need to find another gig, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's high times right now on the plains of Auburn. Gus Malzahn comes in after the worst season that anybody really can remember that's alive today. And like you said yesterday, turns things around, closes a chasm of a gap in 1 year, and not even a year, closes that gap, sends Auburn, an SEC title game, SEC champions his first year. They go to the national championship game. Now they're coming back this year. And I said this at the beginning of the year, and I still believe it right now. It's imperative that Auburn wins at least 10 games this year to continue to try to, bring Auburn out of that. Auburn's one of the top 15 best college football programs in the history of college football. It would be nice to move into that 10-5 range. And to do that, Auburn needs to be successive in their, they don't need to be, up and down so much as they've been in their history. The way to do that is to win 10 games consecutively for 4 or 5 years. This is that great opportunity, and it's so much more difficult now to do it. And I think that just kind of speaks again to, of course, we're just early in this season, but to what Gus Malzahn line is doing. It is just, I think it's one of these things we're going to look back on in 20 years and just go, wow.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Twitter, you can find us at Sportscall AU. Love to hear from you out there, as we got a ton to talk about. What's your most memorable Auburn versus Mississippi State game? The reason you brought that one up, our question of the day yesterday, is Alabama's dynasty, national championship dynasty, if you want the definition of dynasty that we threw out there. Is that over? With the Nick Saban era, you can call in. You can talk about that as well. You can call in. You can talk about Major League Baseball. Don't know how many of you are watching, but I do know that the numbers are down. And, look, I love seeing the Royals and Orioles play, but, boy, those numbers are going to continue to plummet when you don't have the L.A. or the New Yorks out there. It just is what it is. Doesn't really matter. If you're a true baseball aficionado out there, you're going to watch the playoffs anyway. But if you're looking at true numbers and those that are paying the big bucks to put their commercials on television, that's what they're looking for. And baseball continues to lose market share, Andy.
It does. Like you said, I mean, having these small market teams, one of them is going to be in the World Series. It'll probably, if you have a Kansas City, if you have a total Missouri World Series, St. Louis and Kansas City, but I don't think you can go wrong. I think I say it would be, even if the TV numbers are down, I think it would be good for baseball because you see the Royals they've won one World Series. That was back in 1985. This is the first time they've been to the playoffs since 1985. The Orioles, they only have 3 World Championships. The last one they won was 1983. So you're going to have a team in the World Series with an opportunity to win it that hasn't played for it in, almost 30 years. So I think it's tremendous. I don't think we can go wrong. You have the Giants. Those are big markets. The San Francisco Giants, St. Louis Cardinals. They've been around forever. They are traditional baseball powers. One of those two teams, they've been two of the best teams, two of the best franchises in Major League Baseball in the last decade, just with what they've been able to do. And so I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them.
We had plenty of phone calls yesterday asking about injury situations around the SEC. Carl Lawson was a question that was brought up yesterday. Interesting enough. You can take it or leave it. Having a conversation with someone, I guess I'd call him somewhat within the program today, and was talking about Carl Lawson, and the last that they had heard about Carl was the earliest that he may be back where he's injury-free enough to be put out on the field is the bowl games. So I was asked that question today, and if Carl Lawson's available and Auburn's in the Final Four, would you play him and would you burn a season with him? Personally, absolutely. I mean, how often do you get a chance to go play for national titles? And if he makes a difference and he helps you win one of those games, and he could be a 3-year and done guy anyway, his talent level shows that he's good enough to be a 3-year and done. I just hate to see these injuries, though. These knee injuries, I've seen so many of them on the high school ranks this year with some of the top prospects in our area that hopefully will be back in full form. But knee injuries are tough to come back from, Andy, especially ACL injuries quickly.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Adrian Peterson, and that was just kind of a freak thing. It's something that nobody has ever seen, somebody come back from an ACL as quickly as he did. That's not the norm. That is the exception. But I'm like you. I said this yesterday. I thought they'd probably end up redshirting Carl Lawson, but I think y'all are kind of winning me over with the argument of, he may be 3 and done anyway. Let him play. If he won't, I'd leave it up to him.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Matt in Auburn, you're on Sportscall.
Hey, gentlemen, how y'all doing?
Good to hear from you, Matt.
Yeah, this is Matt McAbill, put my old hometown on the map. Anyway, what was you saying? I wasn't calling to ask about Carl Lawson, but I caught the tail end of what you were saying. Did you say that inside sources say it's probably best case scenario is bowl game?
Take it or leave it, but yes, that's what I heard.
Wow, man, I sure was thinking and hoping on that Ole Miss game, but
definitely.
Look,
it could be. I could be off there. I hope I am off. But if I'm not, the question during lunch today that was talked, and I think that it was thrown around with someone in the know there at Auburn. And look, I hate to do that. I hate to speculate, but I guess that's what you have to do on programs like this is, would you like to have Carl Lawson if he is available for those 2 bowl games, hopefully if we're playing in the Final Four? And my answer was absolutely yes.
Oh, yeah, I agree 100%. But anyway, I was calling, I guess, ask a question and then a comment. The question is, was there any injuries or notable injuries coming out of this past weekend? I don't remember seeing anybody hurt or limping off the field, but I missed something.
Nothing of major. I mean, nothing major. I think, every team's got bumps and bruises at this point, and I think, Auburn's as banged up as anybody else. But I think we came out of this game pretty clean, actually.
Yeah, I was hoping for him. This game concerns me mainly because this is almost like a mirror image of what we do and the way they're playing and, starting to catch fire. And, this game really makes me nervous. I personally believe this is going to be our toughest road game. I may be wrong, but I think this could ultimately be our toughest road game of the year. How do y'all think we match up as far as, their weakness is supposed to be their secondary? Do you think that's something Gus is going to try to exploit?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. That's the one glaring thing when you look down through the statistics. Mississippi State, giving up a little over 300 yards a game through the air, and just it's kind of shocking to look at that and see that, but. That's the one instance that you look, because every other statistic they are right at where Auburn is or better. So I think that's the weakness that you focus on. I don't think that's going to mean that Auburn is not going to try to run the ball, because that's who Auburn is. If we cannot establish the run, it certainly limits to what we do on offense. But I definitely think you'll see a game plan much like you saw last week, where the passing game is opened up. You try to get Sammy Coates, you try to get Duke Williams involved early to loosen up the defense a little bit to improve the running game.
Yeah, I think my last question is, as far as I think we're doing real good against the run, and I think we'll do good against the run. Well, I hope we do good against the run Saturday. But my concern is that wild card factor with Dak running it. And I'll hang up and let you comment on that. But how do you think we match up, or what do you think the key is to stopping that wild card threat of Dak, running it?
Matt, before we let you go, you got a prediction on the game Saturday?
And we lost Matt. We appreciate your phone call. If you want to call back and give a prediction on the game, we'll take that. Third down conversions is the tiebreaker this week. We'll go to break. When we come back, we'll talk about Dak Prescott. We'll talk about the issues that he presents to the defensive unit for Auburn.
More Sports Call right after this.
Everyone.
trip or cruise, contact Rudalisa Anderson at Cruise Planners today. Why do the planning when it can be done for you? Visit exclusivecruiseplanners.com or call 844-722-6342.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our AO Tourism hotline. Matt asked a question there at the end of our first segment there. I think Dak Prescott and the Wild, his rushing yards will be a big factor in this game. They have been a big factor all season long. He has 455 yards rushing on the season, running for about 5.4 yards a carry. He got 6 touchdowns rushing this year. So, you compare that with Nick Marshall. Nick's got 392 yards rushing. He's averaging 6.8 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns on the season. You look at these two teams and they match up so well. They look so much like each other, especially on offense. Whoever plays the read option better, I think probably will end up winning this game.
I do think that stat that Matt brought up is staggering. I didn't say it yesterday. I didn't look at it yesterday. I knew their pass defense was something that was the part of their team that you could go after, but I didn't realize it was this bad. Mississippi State allowing 328.2 yards passing per game. The second worst team in the SEC, is that the way to say that?
Yes.
The next worst team in the SEC is Florida, and they're giving up 60 yards less per game than Mississippi State is at 267 yards per game. So 328 yards passing. And look, that's not playing they're just now hitting the meat of that SEC West schedule that they'll see. They've got some very good passing teams left here on this schedule. So I'm a little bit surprised to see it. I know UAB threw it around pretty well against them, but to see 328 a game, that's where you've got to go after this defense.
And think about South Carolina. They had 511 passing yards just against Texas A&M. They've been one of the worst defenses in the SEC. Mississippi State's been worse than them against the pass. That's kind of staggering when you think about it. And again, I say when you run down, you look at these stats on both sides, they are so close. There are a couple of stats here and there that you look at, and one of them certainly is the pass defense. Now, I will say, as far as pass efficiency defense, Mississippi State's not quite as bad. They're 43rd in the country.
What does that mean?
Well, it's the same thing as pass efficiency on offense. You combine everything.
Is that interceptions and turnovers?
Turnovers.
How many times they
it gives you supposedly a better statistic on how good or bad their pass defense actually is. Yardage kind of gets a little overblown now, of course, with spread offenses and everybody running up these big offensive numbers. But another stat that I look at that is a big one is third down conversions. Auburn converting 56.9% of their third downs. That's number 3 in the country. Mississippi State only 41.4%. That's 68th in the country. Third down will play a big role in this game. Third down defense is going to play a big role. That's the kind of matchups that you see here. Mississippi State, one of the best in the country on third down defense. Number 6 in the country versus Auburn, one of the best in the country converting third downs. It's about who wins.
I agree. What's your most memorable Mississippi State-Auburn game? That's our question of the day. As I look down through here, Andy, and the one thing that pops to mind, I don't think we'll have to worry about some of these games. We've had a couple already mention this sleeper back in 2008, but Auburn wins 3-2 in what was the start of a miserable season. And that 3-2 game against Mississippi State goes back up in 2007, a 19-14 Mississippi State win against that was a bad Mississippi State team that was able to come into Auburn and defeat that team. They only had 213 yards of total offense that day, 43 passing the football, and they beat us 19-14. Tells you what we had offensively. I doubt it very seriously we're going to see that on Saturday.
I would. That's highly unlikely. That 2007 game, you mentioned that Sylvester Croom comes in. I think that was his only bowl game season. But Auburn had just lost to South Florida. They bring in overtime. They bring Mississippi State comes in. that was that first game that you thought, you saw a lot of problems for Auburn on the horizon. The musical chairs at quarterback began on that day. Brandon Cox was benched. Cody Burns came in, led Auburn to an almost comeback. I think fell short right there at about the 10-yard line, trying to go in and score. But
did come back, and they did play well, and they were needed in that football game against LSU.
Oh, yeah, they showed up, and that's the kind of thing. When you have depth like Auburn does on the offensive line, you can plug in a guy like Devontae Danzy, who they feel great about, into the rotation, and he doesn't miss a beat. You have a guy like Avery Young who can play guard. He can play tackle. He can slide out in the middle of a game, and Auburn not really miss a beat. So offensive line, that if you're going to have depth, have it on the offensive and defensive lines, because that's really the core of your team, and Auburn's got it right now. And it'll be interesting to see if Pat Miller, are they going to wait till he's absolutely 100%, because they don't want to quite mess with what the offensive line. They look pretty good Saturday night against LSU. When we come back, hopefully we're going to catch up with Justin Ferguson, lead writer at the Bleacher Report, and now with the Columbus Ledger Inquirer. More Sports Call on the way right after this.
Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is a proud sponsor of the College Football Playoff. Dr. Pepper, always one of a kind.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Wednesday edition of Sports Call. Andy Graham here with you for another hour and a half, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. We'll actually pick up your phone calls in the following segment, but right now we're going to welcome in our guest for today, Justin Ferguson, lead writer at the Bleacher Report and now writer with the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer. Justin, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are y'all?
Doing pretty good. Justin obviously was the managing editor of the Auburn Plainsman, but now he has moved on to bigger and better things. How's the new job going, and how's the adjustment been?
It's been great. Getting to cover the team a little bit more. Working with Ryan Black over the Ledger Inquirer. Getting to go on some more road trips for games, and freeing up some time just to focus on covering football. So I've enjoyed it so far. It's been a great experience.
Well, congratulations. Glad to see you out there, and I know you'll do a great job covering Auburn. This LSU game this past weekend, obviously Auburn is probably the best they've looked all season. Everything seemed to be clicking. What were you most impressed with the Auburn win?
I was really impressed with the way Auburn ran the football against LSU, and was able to use the pass to kind of get LSU off balance. This LSU team had a lot of issues, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but on defense, this was supposed to be a team that could really stop running backs well. And Nick Marshall had two just really good touchdown runs, and then you had some good runs in there from Cameron Artis-Payne and Corey Grant. And that was really impressive to me, how the offensive line, through all of the injuries, Devontae Danzy has come in and performed really well for Auburn. Has received a lot of praise from his coaches. But to see Auburn going through this turnover on the offensive line and still being able to run the ball against LSU as effectively as they did, the balance, like you said, it was the best Auburn had seen this year. Everything was clicking on both sides of the ball, but that was the balance I think you're really going to see in the future from Auburn, not just being a run-heavy team, but being able to do it both and do both very well.
Auburn holds LSU to 280 total yards, 0 of 13 on third down conversions. This defense this year at Auburn has just looked so much better than it has looked in the last 3 or 4 years, actually. What do you think the biggest difference is this year between years past?
Well, I mean, if you talk to players and Ellis Johnson, it's just being in this 4-2-5 system another year, having that year to have improvement, and Auburn definitely had improvement last year defensively, but to be able to get it even more because the guys know where they're going most of the time. They know what their assignments are a little bit better, and this defense has gotten bigger and faster. But I think a lot of it comes down to just knowing what to do in a system that not very many players have ever experienced before, and it's really worked out on all phases of the offense. I mean, of the defense. There's the talk about the defensive line. Would they be able to get enough penetration without the likes of Carl Lawson, D. Ford? The pass rush isn't exactly where they want it to be yet, but as you've seen, though, the Auburn stopping the run, they have been able to get into the backfield with that defensive line, and winning that battle up front's just been huge for the linebackers and the secondary, who have also improved so much more this year and shown a lot of good depth, even with some injuries.
Auburn moves up to number 2 in the AP and the coaches poll, but in some other polls, quite a few, a lot of talk around the country that Auburn may be the best team in the country, the number 1 team in the country. So I'll pose you that question. Is Auburn the number 1 team in the country?
As of right now, I would say yes. When you look at other teams, that undefeated teams in college football, I think Auburn's got the most impressive resume. Florida State, yes, still undefeated, but they have struggled at times with the likes of Oklahoma State and then NC State and Clemson. Whereas Auburn, they had that rough go in Kansas State, a Kansas State team that is going to be contending for the Big 12 this year. I think they're going to be a really, really good team. But Auburn's taking care of business. They're offensively and defensively looking like the most complete team in the country, avoiding turnovers, forcing turnovers, and just taking care of business. And it's going to come down to the test this weekend. Really going to see if Auburn is truly the number one team. But I thought going into this week they already were not very high on the Florida State Seminoles this year. Just the way they've looked, it's just been a disjointed effort from them so far this year.
We've got Justin Ferguson, lead writer at the Bleacher Report and writer with the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer, joining us here on Sports Call this afternoon. As we turn our attention, you beat the number 15 team in the country. That means that you get to play the number 3 team in the country on the road. That's life in the SEC, especially the SEC West. When you take a look at this Mississippi State team so far this year, they have been just extremely impressive, really, on both sides of the ball. Of course, they have their weaknesses just like everybody else. But what do you think? What's your analysis of this Mississippi State team?
I think if you're looking for a complete team like Auburn in the country, I would say Mississippi State would be right up there with Auburn. The offense is explosive. They can run the ball. They can throw the ball. Dan Mullen's got what he wanted this offense to look like. It's finally clicking. He's got his man, Dak Prescott, and he's got a bunch of great weapons, experienced weapons around him. And on defense, I think this is one of the toughest front sevens Auburn will face all year. Probably will be the toughest they face all year. And a secondary that has its holes. Mississippi State's prone to giving up the big play through the air, which I think will be a big thing for Nick Marshall and Duke Williams and Sammy Coates this week. But they also generate a lot of turnovers. You saw that last week. They got pressure on Kenny Hill at Texas A&M, forced him to make some mistakes. And this is a complete football team that's going to be playing at home, biggest game of their program's history, and it'll be another tough matchup for Auburn, and it's going to be a great game, I think.
When you talk about matchups, how do you see, or where do you see Mississippi State's best opportunity to have success against Auburn, and where do you see Auburn's best opportunities to have success against Mississippi State?
I think Auburn's best opportunity to have success will be through the air. Like I said, the secondary at Mississippi State has given us some big plays through the air. They're toward the bottom nationally in yards allowed per game, and that's kind of weighted towards A&M having to play from behind and LSU having to play from behind. But still, you saw teams like UAB able to move the ball through the air against the Bulldogs. So I think it's going to be a very good test for Nick Marshall. And now that he's got Sammy Coates back as a reliable big play receiver, we saw that against LSU. And then he's got Duke Williams, several other guys around him that can make plays. I think that's where Auburn is going to win or lose this ball game. How effective can Nick Marshall be throwing the ball? How far has he improved? And as for Mississippi State, I think Mississippi State's going to they should have a good time slowing down Auburn's rushing attack and then getting some runs on Auburn. Dak Prescott and Josh Robinson are going to be powerful backs for Mississippi State, and it's going to be a really tough test for Auburn. How solid are they going to be down the middle of the field? Prescott is probably the best quarterback in the country right now, just going off of his performances this year. Robinson's a guy that's hard to tackle and can make big plays once he gets into the second level. So if Mississippi State can get the ball rolling on the ground, Auburn could be in for a really, really tough game. It's going to be a great test of how far that rush defense has improved this year.
When you look at these two teams, we've talked about it here on the show the last couple of days. There's so many matchups that are so close, and these teams look so much alike in most of what they do. When you look at a game that is so tight on both sides, both teams like to run the ball. They run the ball well. Both teams can throw the ball. Both teams play good rush defense. Games like this often come down to special teams. Who do you think has the advantage when it comes to special teams between these two?
Definitely Auburn. Quan Bray, even though he didn't get that many chances last week, LSU basically kicked away from him. It ended up not working out for him in the end, but it was a smart strategy nonetheless. But if Quan Bray gets some chances in the punt return game, he's better than anybody's Mississippi State's got. Mississippi State has not busted a big return in the kick or punt return game this year, and they've had some injuries back there. And they've been prone to giving up a couple of big returns this year. They haven't given up a touchdown yet, but a couple of, momentum shifting plays. And I think State doesn't kick the ball a lot. Daniel Carlson has proven this year that he can hit pretty good length field goals, and is really consistent there. And I think the special teams is an advantage to Auburn, and that's just another one of the reasons I think Auburn's going to pull out a really close win.
Well, our question of the day today, or really our question of the week, we've been talking about our most memorable Auburn versus Mississippi State games. Do you have a one that sticks out in your mind here that you've witnessed recently?
I don't want to say the 3-2 game. That was one of the worst football games I think any of us have ever watched. And I know it's fresh, and I know it might be the easy answer, but I like going back to last year's game, the 2013 game, and seeing just how good Nick Marshall is in the clutch. This was the first chance Auburn got to experience what Marshall can do when the game's on the line. And for me personally, being on the sidelines at the end of that game and watching the C.J. Uzama catch, the play call, and everything Malzahn had working for Auburn late, that's memorable. It was a game that really set Auburn going and shown that they were going to be a force in the SEC West.
Yeah, it took 300 yards, 330 or 320 yards passing by Nick Marshall to pull that game out. It'll be interesting to see if that's what it takes this year.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Justin Ferguson, lead writer there at the Bleacher Report, now with the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer. We really appreciate you joining us here on Sports Call this afternoon, and look forward to talking with you again real soon.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. More Sports Call on the way right after this.
For more than 40 years, big beer corporations have dominated the market with their idea of light beer. We believe it's time for something different. That's why we started brewing Yingling Light Lager, a lower-calorie beer with true lager taste. 99.
Vitalize and replenish. It's always Resource Natural Spring Water.
Hookah shaka, hookah, hookah, hookah shaka, hookah, hookah, hookah shaka, hookah, hookah, hookah shaka, hookah, hookah. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free, or locally at 334-887-3401 on our Auburn Opelika Tourism Hotline. We caught up there with Justin Ferguson from the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer. A lot of great insight on this past week, on the upcoming week. Certainly the game of the week there on CBS at 2:30 in Starkville, Mississippi. Game day will be there. Has a game day ever been in the same state twice in a row for 2 weeks? I wonder. That's a good question. That's a good trivia question, but I don't know the answer.
Be very helpful if I turn my mic back on. But, yeah, it's a great trivia question. If it ever happened, it probably here in this state, potentially down in Florida, would be a good one as well. But what a great schedule this weekend all the way around. Yeah, you've got the big Auburn and Mississippi State game, number 2 versus number 3. Ole Miss taking on Texas A&M. Ole Miss up to number 3 as well. TCU versus Baylor. I don't know which way I go with that one, especially with TCU and what they did last week, taking down Oklahoma. Y'all see
what do you do with TCU if they win?
I said yesterday to Brett and you that I was really scared of Baylor. I think their offense could cause fits to anyone, and neither one of you have any worries about Baylor. So you like TCU this weekend?
I think TCU's a scary team. But I think Gary Patterson is an outstanding coach, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You give him time, and he'll figure out a way to slow you down and give his offense an opportunity to win the game.
I don't think we have to worry about a good weekend of games anymore as we close on out throughout the season. Oregon takes on UCLA this weekend. Georgia taking on Missouri. That one in the East, that one's going to go a long way, Andy.
Absolutely. That's kind of a quiet one everybody's kind of overlooking. That one probably will decide it. I mean, you have Florida lurking there, but does anybody really believe Florida is a threat to win the East? I guess it depends on if they beat LSU. LSU's beatable. South Carolina's beatable. They're going to have to play Missouri. They're going to have to play Georgia. So they'll earn their way if they were to do it. But, I mean, with all the chaos going on right now at Florida, you put poor Jeff Driscoll after you benched him. Now you throw him right back out there. Your backup now just got in a fight over a pair of cleats or something, morning wig. Now, Treon Harris is being investigated for a sexual assault. He's been suspended indefinitely. So I just kind of put, even though Florida right now is still mathematically in it, I put them aside. So I'm like you. This Georgia-Missouri game in Columbia probably decides the East.
888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Did you see the news? Ole Miss out there saying, look, we've got is it a $60,000 bill, $50,000 bill from the SEC for the goalpost and the rating the field this past Saturday? Was that the number?
I think let's see. They got a crowdfunding platform. Ole Miss athletic director Ross Bjork. I want to say that again. Ross Bjork asked fans Tuesday afternoon to help pay for the goalpost. The goalposts, each one of them cost $11,000, so that's $22,000. They had a fine from the SEC. That's $50,000. In less than 3 hours, $75,000 was raised.
Yeah, I don't think they'd have any problem coming up with that amount of money. And I think it's funny. I think that it is all in fun that Ole Miss goes to a PayPal setup like this. I guess that's what you call it. And to receive the funds in. And what a game. What a game for Ole Miss. It'll be one. Look, anytime they beat Alabama, it's one that they always remember.
$3,000 in stadium repairs. They tore the stadium up. You think it's hopping over the wall? I mean, at Auburn, you think they have to do some landscaping to fix the shrubs. Of course, the shrubs still are not quite 100% after all last year. But they even tore up their own stadium when they won this game. I never quite understood that. And this is interesting. I thought Ole Miss has decided that one of the ways that they raised money was that they gave pieces of the goalpost. You have a 6-inch piece that they sold for $1,000 and a 3-inch piece they sold for $500. And that apparently sold out in an hour. And the athletic director said maybe we priced that a little low.
888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-3401. What does that tell us? How one win over
College football
Alabama
fans are insane.
Look, Bama fans would tell you that's how important we are to other programs when they defeat us. Is that what you're hearing in the back of your head from your Bama friends that you know of?
No, I haven't heard that one yet, but I'm sure people are thinking it all across. And certainly I'm glad you put that in my head now. That's all I'll think about. That's all I'll think about. But, yeah, look, for Ole Miss, it's still, you have to remind myself, Ole Miss has never won the West. Ole Miss, as far as in the modern day, Ole Miss has never played in an SEC championship game. And Mississippi State's played in it once, I guess, but Ole Miss has never played in the SEC championship game. They have been. I think about Ole Miss as having good tradition. I think about them as having, good teams, but they're a mediocre program.
They can't get over the hump.
They can't.
They haven't in our lifetime. And when you lose to a Mississippi school, I've seen so many tweets out there from Alabama fans this week. Look, when you lose to a Mississippi school,
you're not very good.
It's just not very good. You can't spin it however you want to. And unfortunately, that's one thing my father's always said. He said, if you can't beat Mississippi State and Ole Miss, you may as well just go ahead and ride it up that it's going to be a pretty mediocre season. And I hate to say it, this year could be different. Mississippi State, to me, is the second best team in the SEC. We got to go on the road. The odds makers show that it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a close game, but people still feel like Auburn is the team to beat in it. Again, our question of the day, it's what's your most memorable Auburn versus Mississippi State game? One that we haven't talked about is that 2011 game, and it was a good one. It was a fun game. Auburn wins 41-34, held a 31-24 halftime lead. Mississippi State runs 97 plays in the football game, 531 yards of offense. Is that what we're looking forward to this Saturday? What's the over-under on the game Saturday? Do you know?
I don't know.
We got to look it up.
We'll do that.
I'm gonna guess the over and under's 60.
At least I would think. Yeah. Well, the Fox Sports Report is up next. Randy and I'll be back with you for hour number 2 of Sports Call right after this.
the coach of the New England Patriots for a time. Instead of owned to Cincinnati, we're owned to Trout.
Located on Cobbs Ford Road, 334-290-1992. Visit us online at ReinhardtPrattville.com. Reinhardt Prattville. We sell to sell again.
You better buckle your seatbelts because it's going to be a show to watch.
From Tiger Communications.
Jackson, touchdown.
For 20 years, East Alabama's sports talk leader.
Swing and drive, Johnson right.
Sportscall.
Oh, what a dunk.
Call in now at 887-3401-LOCAL. Or 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free.
Struck him out.
And now, coming to you live from the loveliest village on the plains. Sportscall.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of Sports Call. I am Andy Graham. He is Randy Lee, and this is Sports Call. We would love to hear from you. Give us a call at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our AO Tourism hotline. We'd love for you to be a part of the program today. Let us know what's on your mind. If you'd like to comment on any things we've talked about earlier in the first hour, or you can talk about whatever you'd like to talk about, or you'd like to hear us talk about. We'd just like to hear from you. You can check us out on our Facebook page, or you can just send us a tweet at SportsCallAU. Sports Call today brought to you by Auburn Urgent Care. Auburn Urgent Care offers convenient solutions for your health care and occupational medicine needs, including workman's compensation injury care and certified DOT medical examinations. With locations on South College and in Tigertown, visit them online at auburnurgentcare.com. Our question of the day, what's your most memorable Auburn versus Mississippi State game? We've talked about quite a few of our most memorable games. The 97 game was a memorable one for both Randy and I. We were in school at Auburn at that time. It was a miserable day on the Plains as Auburn was defeated 20-0. Damian Craig had one of his worst outings, throwing 4 interceptions. I recounted 1999. That was Tommy Tuberville's first year. Auburn blew a 16-3 lead in the last 2 minutes of the game to lose 18-16. Matt Wyatt now led that charge, who is the now color man for Mississippi State. Another game that I had not mentioned, but I'll bring up, 2001. Auburn actually won that game 16-14. It was that first time in 4 years that Auburn had finally beaten Mississippi State. Auburn was kind of playing musical chairs. They didn't know whether they wanted to be, Daniel Cobb. They didn't know if they wanted to be Jason Campbell. It was kind of a miserable day, really. No discernible. I mean, neither team had 300 total yards. I think Mississippi State 285, Auburn 293. Seldom remembered Cassinius Moore had 160 yards rushing out of nowhere. Damon Duval kicked 3 field goals in the fourth quarter. Auburn finally exercised the Bulldog demons and won the game 16-14 and would go on to win the next 6 games in the series. So that's a kind of a memorable one for me.
Let's go back to the phone lines. Tony and Tuskegee, you're on Sports Call.
Yeah, I didn't get my pick yesterday for the score.
All right, what you think, Tony?
I like 34-17 Mississippi State.
All right, and how many third down conversions for Mississippi State?
About 6.
6 third down conversions. Tony, we can't thank you enough for your phone call, buddy. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Let's go back to the phone lines. Hagan and Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys. How y'all doing?
Good to hear from you, Hagan.
I just wanted to get your take on the Auburn defense. Other than the first half of the Arkansas game, we've actually played a pretty good defense, which is surprising from the past few years. It looks like right now it looks the best it's been since I can really remember. Maybe even the 2004 team. I mean, the 2010 team was good, but they're looking really good right now. With that in mind, what are you guys thinking? If we can get our defense like it is right now, and with our offense, if we can, get rolling like we know we can, what do you guys think the outcome would be realistically?
Well, we've been saying the last couple of years that if we could only get the defense back up to par with what we're creating with Gus Malzahn offensively, that we think we'd have something. You look at the stats, I totally agree with you. Auburn's defense is 3rd in the conference, only giving up 306 yards per game. Pass defense, I think, is where we've been decent from time to time, even back to 2010 in run defense. But pass defense this year, we're all the way up to number 6 in the conference, giving up 206 yards per game passing, which is 122 yards per game passing less than Mississippi State's giving up. So that's the biggest difference that you'll see in this game this weekend.
Okay, that sounds like a good deal.
Hagan, you got a prediction on this weekend?
Prediction, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm thinking maybe Auburn 45, Mississippi State 35.
45-30. We'll get that down.
45-35 Auburn.
Okay, buddy.
One last thing. The winner of this game, do you think that they will be the SEC champions? I'll hang up and let y'all listen. Thank you, guys.
I totally do. I think the top 2 teams are playing this weekend. Doesn't mean that one of the other teams can't sneak back in, but when I look and I see the games and I see the 2 teams and what they've done so far in the season, Andy, I think especially watching Auburn offensively last week, top 2 teams will be playing in Starkville this weekend.
I don't think – to me, these are the 2 best teams that I've seen so far. Now, after Alabama played Florida, I thought Alabama had the biggest quality win. I thought they had played the best game up to that point. Now, you're what am I going to say 2 weeks from now? Well, there's a lot of football yet to be played. But right now, I say these are the 2 best teams in the conference. I think the winner of this game has a great opportunity. They're certainly in the driver's seat. But Mississippi State's, they've still got to play Alabama. They still got some quality opponents on their agenda as well. So, it's hard to say, but right now, it looks like these are the two best teams.
This Western Division's unreal week in and week out. And if you look at the remainder of Auburn's schedule, you've got to go on the road to that Ole Miss team that defeated Alabama. You got to go on the road to Georgia. You got to go on the road to Alabama. It's just good luck getting through the gamut that is the SEC this year. Back to the phone lines. Luke in Ellick City, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys. How are y'all today?
Good to hear from you, Luke.
I'll tell you, I don't know. I know you guys don't talk a lot of high school football, and I'd be glad to answer any Alabama questions or anything. I wouldn't dodge anything. But, Randy, I mean, you've heard me talk about a game coming up this weekend, and it's not necessarily in this area, but Shades Valley against Clay Chalkville, and I think Auburn and Alabama fans ought to really pay attention to it. There are at least 3 prospects on each team, and it's a monster game in the AHSA. I think it's the game of the year in high school football, and this may not necessarily be y'all's forte on this particular show, but I think this game deserves some mentioning.
Luke, I totally agree. And when you're calling and talking in this area, especially Opelika fans abundantly over in the Lee County area, and I think that you point to these 2 teams out of the north that potentially could make it out of 6A, and I love the way Opelika's playing in the southern half. Look, we're Benjamin Russell fans. Brett and I are out calling those games, but I saw Opelika up close and personal, and they got all that it's going to take to move forward and win a state championship in 6A. I think that these are 3 of the teams you could see there at Jordan-Hare to end the season.
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I think there's 4 teams in 6A that can win it all. At least I thought there were 4. Now that Spanish Fort doesn't have their quarterback Tyler Johnson anymore, I kind of feel like it may be a 3-team race, even though Spanish Fort's ranked number 1. They've won 30 in a row. I know that, but I feel like this Opelika team, which seems to only get better every week, and even against Benjamin Russell, I know Benjamin Russell shot themselves in the foot several times, but Opelika pretty much controlled that game from start to finish. In the second half, Benjamin Russell picked it up, but by then it was too late. And then last week, Opelika absolutely destroyed a Chelsea team that was having its best season in years. So Opelika, Shades Valley, and Clay Chalkville, that's a race to really keep an eye on. I mean, 7A is always the biggest story in the state, but I think 6A may steal the show this year.
Luke, we can't let you go without talking just a bit about Alabama, and I guess the biggest question or the biggest news out there on the national media today is A.J. McCarron's comments. You got to comment on A.J. McCarron's comments today.
I kind of wish A.J. McCarron would have a nice warm glass of shut your yap. I mean, look, I love him, and I think I appreciate everything he did for Alabama, but, I mean, to come out and say things and imply things the way he was, I mean, look, the program is a lot bigger than A.J. McCarron. I mean, in fact, I think was it Fran Tarkenton that came out today and said, look, Alabama did a lot more for A.J. McCarron than A.J. McCarron did for Alabama, and I totally agree with that. I think sometimes players can just get somewhat of a big head, and A.J. McCarron, look, he won in high school. He won at Alabama. He's not doing anything in Cincinnati right now, but his team's winning. So, I mean, I guess he has the right to say whatever he wants to say. At the same time, I feel like he is really taking a poor angle from a marketing standpoint. Somebody else put it best, that if he would just every now and again say, you know what, Roll Tide, and I want to thank everybody for being a fan of mine, he could sell Chevrolets and Ford trucks in the state of Alabama for the rest of his life and make a comfortable living. But instead, he's going to take a different angle and take a shot at Saban, and then say his account was hacked. And I'm so tired of everybody telling me their account was hacked. I mean, if you say it, just own up to it.
I can't agree with you more, Luke. We appreciate your phone call this afternoon.
All right, guys, have a good day.
We're going to go a couple of minutes over on this segment. Got one more phone call out there. Anthony in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys, how's it going today?
Good to hear from you, Anthony.
I was going to see, I think y'all may have hit on it a little bit yesterday. I think I heard Andy talking about it. I haven't had a chance to listen too much. But as far as for the passing game, and this is not a gripe. I mean, I know that Malzahn knows what he's doing and all that, and I'm just a fan. But as far as keeping Marshall in a rhythm, do you think that that Malzahn should go to the passing game a little more than he does? Because it seems like he gets on this run-happy offense, and it seems like sometimes we're just 7 runs at a time. I mean, do you feel like it really hinders Marshall from not having a consistent passing game?
And to think that you just said exactly what Jason Caldwell said. Best I took it yesterday during your interview with Jason, that he felt like Auburn did open it up, throw a little bit more on first and second down this past weekend, and it was a benefit to Nick Marshall, give him a little momentum moving throughout the game, and I think that it showed. Andy, is that what you took from Jason yesterday?
Yeah, I think so. I think we saw that Saturday. It was a fresh kind of I was willing to throw the ball a little bit early in the game, not so much. The game was in hand at halftime, and you stopped seeing it in the third quarter. But in the first half, that was the case on a lot of situations, and I think it did benefit Nick Marshall. I think he is a guy that needs to be in a rhythm, and he is at his best when he is in a rhythm like that, like you just said.
Yeah, and I got one question. I'll hang up and listen. I know you're up against a break, but I want to hear both of your opinions as far as the weakest spot for Mississippi State and how we can take advantage of that. Guys do a great job, War Eagle.
We appreciate your phone call. We're going to have to get this other phone call on the other side. We're already a couple of minutes over, but we've got a couple of callers holding out there. Please hang in there with us. If you need to hang up, call us back. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401.
Up against a break. More Sports Call on the way right after this. everyone, to the Wednesday edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. And we'll go right back to the AO Tourism Hotline.
Tony in Montgomery, you're on Sports Call. Tony, you there with us?
Hey, guys, y'all, you got me?
Yeah, we got you. Good to hear from you.
All right, bud. How y'all doing today? War Eagle.
War Eagle to you. Thanks for calling.
Well, first off, I want to say I've got, well, I guess you'd call them my grandnephews, Tyler Johnston, Thomas Johnston, and J.D. Campbell. All three of them play for Spanish Fort. And this kid that took Tyler's place, he's pretty good. So I wouldn't count Spanish Fort out.
Well, let me take a quick second to compliment your family, because I've had the pleasure of watching the Johnston boys play over the last several years. And by the way, that sophomore is an All-American. He's a Max Preps All-American at linebacker. I think that's
talking about Thomas.
Yeah, he's an outstanding football player. Tyler gets a lot of the pub out there because he's the quarterback, but Thomas really jumps out on the field whenever you're there to watch him. He's been a starter for Spanish Fort since the 8th grade.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, J.D. Campbell, my niece's son, he's got a lot of heart, and he's going to play for somebody too. I mean, he doesn't get the write-ups and all like that, but he is all around the football. He's very disruptive. He's making tackles. If he's not making them, he's making the changes, the way the other team play. Changes the way the other offense plays. So they all three are very, very good at what they do.
Definitely.
And they all three have a lot of confidence. And JD had his knee tore up last year, and I told him after it happened, I said, listen, the doctors will put your knee back together, but you got to put your head back together. And that's a big part of it. When you get an injury like that, you've got to get over that mental part of being afraid of getting it hurt again, and he's done a great job of that. But what I wanted to ask about, where do you think the biggest difference, I guess I'm trying to, the depth part on the Mississippi State defensive side, are they as deep as we are? I mean, I'm kind of thinking that we're going to wear them down, and they're not going to be able to. I think it'll be a good close ball game in the first half. First half of third quarter. But I mean, I'm an Auburn fan, so I'm wearing orange and blue glasses. But I just think we've got a little bit too much depth for them. And I think that even though it'll be on the road, and I've been there before, I've heard them cowbell, I could still hear them ringing. Talk to me a little bit about that, and I'm going to hang up and listen to you.
Tony, thanks so much for your phone call. I'll talk about the rush defense for Mississippi State, and if you look at the numbers, they're only giving up 98 yards per game. Auburn's right behind them, third in the conference at 100 yards per game. Chris Jones, we saw him, and the only reason I go back, I try to give you some ideas of some people that we saw when they were in high school. It's a couple of years ago, but Chris Jones is as good as I've seen as a defensive tackle. My hopes are the same as yours, that they're not as deep as we are on the defensive line, and that you can lean on them moving into the second half. Because if there's one stat that jumps out defensively for Auburn, Andy, it's yes, they're giving up 100 yards rushing per game, but only 30 yards of that 100 given up in the second half of football games. So we're winning the second half by far. Less than 0.5 yards per carry in the second half. That tells you how deep that defensive line is to me. That's what I take from it.
Yeah, and, we've talked about it on the show today. The biggest defense and the biggest weakness, and this goes back to Anthony's question before we went to break, they're giving up over 300 yards, 328 yards a game through the air. Auburn's got some great receivers this year. That's something that Nick Marshall has improved on. His completion percentage is not as high as it was last year, at least at this point. But Auburn's pass efficiency is very good. We're throwing the ball and completing it in large gaps, and we're scoring touchdowns through the air, and that's a good thing. You look at Auburn's red zone defense; we're number 1 in the country. I mean, red zone offense. You look at Mississippi State; they're number 84 in the country in red zone offense. I think another aspect of this game that's going to play a big role is tackles for loss. Mississippi State does a great job of creating tackles for loss. Auburn does a pretty good job themselves. Who's going to be playing from behind the sticks? Auburn has already shown this year that they struggle when they're in 2nd and 12. Mississippi State does much the same thing. Who wins these small little battles? The third down conversion, the tackles for loss, the red zone offense. Those are the kind of things that's going to determine the winner in this game.
And 2 players, I said it yesterday, that I think that you can point to and see which one of those 2 players make the most plays behind the line of scrimmage and are the most disruptive are Montravius Adams for Auburn, Chris Jones for Mississippi State. Which one of those 2 players makes the Nick Fairley plays? Because so many of those games in 2010 were won by Nick Fairley just causing so much disruption back in the backfield that it's a problem. That pass efficiency number that you threw out there, Mississippi State, number 1 in the conference pass efficiency. 13 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions for Dak Prescott. Nick Marshall, he's under 60% in completions at 57.9%, but he's 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception on the season on a batted football, so he's not throwing the ball in coverage and putting us in bad situations. So turnover is going to be so big. I know that's easy to say, but in this football game, I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, and talking with Justin Ferguson, I really believe special teams plays a big role in this game as well. Daquan Bray, he's leading the conference in punt return average. If he has a big game, that certainly could turn the tide, turn the momentum, and significantly into Auburn's favor. We're up against a break here, our mid-hour break, but we'll be more. Randy and I'll be back with you in just a few minutes on the other side of this break. More Sports Call right after this.
Dr. Pepper. Here's to a one-of-a-kind Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is a proud sponsor of the College Football Playoff. Dr. Pepper, always one of a kind.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Wednesday edition of Sports Call. Andy and Randy here with you for another 30 minutes, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401 on our AO Tourism Hotline. Still time to get that prediction in. Auburn versus Mississippi State, our tiebreaker. Third down conversions by Mississippi State. That's an interesting stat. Auburn held LSU to 0 of 13 on third down last week. So that's a very interesting, very potent stat here to look for in the upcoming game. And we'll go right back to the AO Tourism Hotline.
Michael in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys. I just, I actually saw Brett posted a video of the 2011 game. I actually forgotten all about that. It's just hadn't been too long ago. But, I really think it's going to be that type of game, physical. I know this is a game that, Mississippi State had circled. If you want to say Auburn had LSU circled, I think, they definitely had this. I just don't think, their passing defense, our physical receivers, I think we match up very well against them and we can utilize some of that, that build and the physicality that, Duke Williams will bring. And I'd like to see, Uzama get, back in the mix. He had a, big catch last year, towards the end, but I think we could use him. I think, the wheel routes, definitely, I think we talked about that earlier this week, but I think you'll see some of that, some of the slow go routes, that Duke had, to seal the deal against Kansas State. I had a big question about how your Final Four is kind of looking like now. Has it changed? And do you see maybe a team like Georgia Tech? I mean, no one's really talking about them. I could see them maybe giving FSU a run for their money. If not, I don't know how the ACC is structured, but I think they play each other. If they don't, I mean, they'd meet in the championship game. But what do you guys think about that?
Well, Michael, we've talked about it a little bit, and one of the biggest questions that I have is, and I'll ask you this before we get into ours, Michael, do you think whoever loses this weekend still has a great chance of making it into that Final Four?
I think it'll be difficult. I think they have a great chance. I just don't. I think Ole Miss will lose this week for theirs, but as far as Mississippi State, I think the winner definitely has a driving seat. With games left, I think that Kentucky game for Mississippi State, no one's talking about it, but I could see that being a challenge for them. I think if Auburn gets by here, I think you really, I hate to say goes on cruise control, but I mean, I don't see them being challenged as much getting through a physical game like this. I don't think I think they're definitely Mississippi State's definitely the better team than Ole Miss, and I think that'll be proven. Of course, Bama late, but I think Hudson Mason's not really proven anything to me, and I think we have what it takes to stop Gurley. So I think if Auburn can pull this out, I think they have a chance. If they lose, there's still a chance, but definitely puts us behind the 8 ball.
Michael, we can't thank you enough for the phone call. We'll talk a little bit about with you off there, okay, buddy?
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. You want to start? Who you like?
Who, the Final Four?
Yeah, come on. Throw it out
there. To be honest with you, and I said this yesterday, I think 3 of the best teams in the country are in the SEC West. And if I legitimately want to say the top 4 playoff teams need to be the best 4 teams in the country, 3 of them are going to be in the West. Right now, I look at it and I say Auburn, Mississippi State, and probably Alabama are the 3 best teams that I've seen. Even though Ole Miss won the game, and if Alabama loses another one and Ole Miss runs the table, I'll change my mind and I'll say Ole Miss. But I'm not a believer. I'm very unimpressed with Florida State. I'm very unimpressed with Notre Dame. The winner of that game, however, I'm pretty sure is going to be undefeated.
I was going to say
and going to make it to that playoff. It will be in that playoff spot. Michigan State, they're a good team. They still got some games left in the Big Ten, although that was a pretty big hurdle to get over Nebraska. Nebraska is probably the second best team in the Big Ten right now. You look at Oklahoma. Look, Kansas State. Kansas State could run the table. What if Kansas State ends up undefeated? Are they better than a one-loss SEC team? No, probably not. But that close loss to Auburn will pay huge dividends if, say, Auburn runs the table. And you could see, a Kansas State sneak in there. But right now, my Final Four on this day, is Auburn, Mississippi State, Alabama, and Florida State.
Kyle, what an uproar in the rest of the country that you would create if that were to happen. I'm with you. I love it. I think that either of those two teams, first, I like Auburn. I'm an Auburn guy. I think we're the best team in the country right now, and I'll throw it out there. Look, it could all end and all come down, sadly, this weekend. But I still think Auburn's the best team. I don't like Florida State. I think Notre Dame's going to beat them. I think Notre Dame got by a tough game against Stanford. But everybody gets by a close game from time to time, and that may have been Notre Dame's. They've been pretty impressive to me, and I think Everett Golson is the difference maker. I think he can keep them close enough with that Florida State team and Winston to give them trouble. At least I'm cheering for that. Let's throw it out there because I'd love to have Notre Dame taking on Auburn in one of those semifinal matchups. I couldn't script that one any better. As I look down the rest of the list, so many of these other teams that I think have the potential, I still think that they're going to want a Pac-12 team in there. So if any of these Pac-12 teams makes a run, I don't care if it's Arizona, Oregon gets back in this thing and they don't lose again, I think that they will sneak in. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Another question Michael had, our receivers against their defensive backs. We've said it all program. That's probably the strength of the Auburn team against this Mississippi State team this weekend. Yeah,
I think I like Auburn's receivers against any defensive backs in the country. A healthy Sammy Coates and from what I've seen of Duke Williams, you throw in, a Melvin Ray who has kind of fallen by the wayside. He still has a lot of talent. Got Quan Bray. You throw in C.J. Uzama. We haven't thrown the ball to Brandon Fultz a time this year coming out of the backfield, but from the H-back position, he is a tight end. He's a guy that can catch a lot of passes. One thing that I've been impressed with is we've thrown the ball to Cameron Artis-Payne a lot more this year. I think that is a weapon. He can catch the ball. He has got good hands. You see Mississippi State, they throw the ball to Josh Robinson quite a bit. That'll be, again, these teams mirror each other so much on offense. It's just going to be kind of counterpunch to see what happens Saturday.
Luke said it about as good as I could say it about A.J. McCarron. What is he thinking, Andy? Honestly, the only thing he has to do is not say anything. And he becomes
he's on a weekly radio show.
But you don't have to talk poorly about Alabama if you're him. I mean, you just don't need to do it. I don't get it. I'm with Luke. I'm an Auburn guy. I don't mind him saying it. I mean, I'll let anybody out there who wants to call in and talk down Alabama. You're more than welcome to on this program. We'll take you each and every day. But I don't get it from a quarterback that won as many national titles and was in as good a situation to come back to the state of Alabama. Doesn't look like he's going to be the next coming of Tom Brady to me. He's not going to be the late-round draft pick that's going to move into the starting quarterback nod, and all of a sudden he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's already won. He got Catherine Webb. He pulled that off somehow. He's got a little money from being able to hang on in the NFL, but his money's going to be made from his name at Alabama and what he is. The only thing he can do is to talk poorly about it, and the only thing he can do is to throw Nick Saban under the bus so as to where he doesn't want him back around. I thought Saban handled himself about as well as you could in this situation. He said he really didn't make mention of it. If you read the article, he didn't say too much about it, but A.J. McCarron just questioning the handicapping that it seems that Nick Saban does to offensive coordinators.
Yeah, there's two things here. And your former quarterback who, was your star boy there, he won 3 national titles and all this or 2 national titles. And he was your face of your team for so many years there. Now there are two things here that he said that I look at and I just scratch my head about. Number one, he says one of the big problems right now Alabama has is they don't have any true leaders like they did when he was there. Well, last year I thought that was what everybody said. There weren't a lot of leaders on that team. Christian Jones came out the first of this year and said the leaders on this team this year are tremendously better than they were last year. Contradiction number one. He says that, they throwing the ball too much to Amari Cooper. I've said that. But he says, I don't know if that's Lane Kiffin or if that's Coach Saban putting the handcuffs on him like I've known him to do in the past for previous offensive coordinators. Nick Saban, no more than 3 weeks ago, said, I've been waiting for an offensive coordinator. I've been trying to get an offensive coordinator to turn it loose and crank the offense up.
First off, I don't believe that.
Well, contradiction number 2. Somebody's lying. Who is it? Which one is it? So all you're doing is creating controversy when there, really wasn't a lot there to begin with. And all you're doing is stirring up trouble. Why borrow sorrow?
Let's go back to the phone lines. Dan in Auburn, you're on Sports Call.
Y'all hear me?
Hey, Dan, you there with us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, we've got you. Good to hear from you.
Okay. Oh, good deal. Yeah, I was just going to make a comment about the Auburn-Mississippi State game coming up. I think both offenses are both obviously really good, and they're both going to get their points. But the biggest thing that I've noticed is when I was looking up on the stats, that Auburn ranks 15th in the country in total defense, and they're giving up 307 yards a game. And Mississippi State is 76th, giving up 426 yards a game. And if you can match opponents, really Mississippi State's played 2 good teams, and then you could say Auburn has played, 2 good teams plus Arkansas, which is probably a pretty decent team, So, and we both each played 1 road game. So I don't think, the game, honestly, I don't think it's about the offense because I think both teams are going to score some points. But I think it really is going to truly come down to the defense.
I totally agree with you, and we hate to sound like a broken record up here, but it's that 328 yards that they're giving up in the passing game every week that really is the eye catcher when you look at their numbers. They're only giving up 98 yards rushing, which is second in the conference, but 328 is about 55, 60 yards more than any other team is giving up in the passing game. Yes, they have played a Texas A&M team, but somehow South Carolina's come back from that disaster they had earlier in the season to have better stats than that. So I'm agreeing with you. I think you're dead on here.
Hey, appreciate it, guys.
Thanks so much for your phone call. Appreciate it out there. 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401.
Yeah, and again, the matchup, you look, the numbers are so similar. You got to, both of these coaching staffs are looking at this game, wondering how are we going to attack the other team. Auburn, the glaring weakness, and the way that Auburn's looking at this, of course, they're going to try to expose the pass defense from Mississippi State. When you look at Mississippi State to Auburn, Mississippi State has imposed their will on everybody they've played. However, you look at who they've played. UAB, South Florida, and Southern Miss doesn't strike fear into you. I think Auburn is more prepared for this game, having gone on the road to play Kansas State, having played Arkansas to game 1 of the year. You've seen Arkansas play this year. Arkansas had Texas A&M on the ropes and should have, probably by all rights, won that game. So I think Auburn now, LSU, yeah, they're not what they once were last year, but they're still got athletes at every position all over the field. I feel like Auburn is the better prepared team to come in and play this game.
Did you see 30 for 30 last night? No, we're up against a break, but did you see it?
I have not. I taped it. I'm going to watch it when I have time.
Watch it. It's first off.
Now, I like Goodfellas, so I'm really interested in it.
Okay, we'll have it. We'll carry it over into the last segment. 30 for 30. I can talk about it at length. I can't watch enough of them. I normally watch each one of them 4 or 5 different times, like I'm going to catch something different. Every time the Manning one comes on, my wife says, please don't tell me you're going to watch those boys fight around the house again a little bit. Enough's enough. But I can't turn it off of it, and last night was great. If those of you that are riding around out there, what you thought about the 30 for 30 with Boston College, it was scary. It did fit into the Goodfellas story, so it was a great story there, but somehow Bruce Pearl, every time I turn on the television and look, I can't see him enough. Bruce Pearl's there smiling, and he's Auburn's head basketball coach. I don't know how we pulled that coup off, but we did, and I'm just glad he's at Auburn.
Perfect timing. It was the perfect timing. That's all. We lucked into it and fell into it. There's no doubt about it. Randy and I'll be back with the last segment of Sports Call right after this.
Spring water with naturally occurring electrolytes that support a lifestyle of well-being. When you need to refresh, revitalize, and replenish, it's always Resource Natural Spring Water.
Welcome back, everyone, to the final segment of Sports Call on this Wednesday afternoon. Andy and Randy here with you, closing out the show. We had still time to get that prediction in, Auburn versus Mississippi State, our tiebreaker, third down conversions by Mississippi State. Still time to get that last phone call in, 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, or locally at 334-887-3401. Randy, you were talking about the 30 for 30 as we left off. Just tell me, give me a thumbnail sketch of what the playing for the mob was last night.
So much money put up and went so much further than the players that were involved thought it was.
Why Boston College?
Just up there in the midst of it.
Really?
And actually had a way to get in with a team that was pretty good. Ended up winning 21 ball games. They finished 21-9 on the season. They were 18-5 at one time. Got a guy within the program, and like it always happens, if you've ever watched 8 Men Out, it's the same situation. You get in, you got to tie in, and once that guy's tied in, and once you're ever, that's what I took from it. And I'd love to hear from you out there. You can find us on social media. Let us know what you thought. 30 for 30s, they're outstanding anyway. But once you're in and once they have you, the mob we're talking about, and there's what can you do? Because, I mean, all they got to do is rat you out, let everybody know what you did. And you have to continue down the path. And so what really happened was the Holy Cross game, Boston College playing Holy Cross, big rival game, and they didn't want to not lose that game. And they end up not covering the spread because the point guard, who ended up being one of the main characters in 30 for 30, one of the main characters that was involved, averaged about 17, 18 points per game. He fouled out. He couldn't have it. He fouled out early in the second half, so he wouldn't have anything to do with it. And they ended up as a 3-point line, didn't cover. A lot of money was lost, and one thing led to another. And old good fella, he got involved. Henry Hill got involved, and he ratted everybody out. And now it's great news. You got to watch it. It was really good, I thought.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, you were talking about earlier. There are a ton of those 30 for 30s out there, and everybody's got their favorite one. Pony Express. That was my all-time favorite. The story about SMU, the money that went through that program and the level that it went to for them, to compete in how it was back in the mid to early 80s. There's just so much about that one that is so good. The governor of Texas being involved and saying, coming out and saying, we can't have this. We got to clean this thing up. And then the guy said, well, we had a payroll to meet. And it took years to try to get down to wean ourselves off this. It's just a great.
Let's quickly go back to the phone lines to close out the program. Shadow and Prattville, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. I want to pick Auburn 35-27.
All right. How many third down conversions for Mississippi State?
Well, let me see. I think you don't happen to know how many third downs we had last week, do you?
I can give you the number that is the norm. I have no earthly idea why our producer, Justin Clayton,
What's the norm?
picked 5 or 6 has been the norm pick so far.
I'm going to say Mississippi State's going to pick up 8 out of 16.
Okay, that'd be 50%, a little bit better than they have. I think their average on the season's 41%, whereas Auburn's up to 58%. It's a big number in this game this weekend.
Well, I think if you want to say that the offenses cancel each other out, I just believe our defense has improved to the point that we're going to win this game with defense. Thank you.
Shadow, thanks so much. And I think it'll be the defensive secondary and the improvements that you've seen there, because Auburn only giving up a little over 200 yards per game passing the ball. That's on defensive passing. And Mississippi State 328, so 120 yards difference. That's where Auburn's got to make their bread this weekend.
That 35-27, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I mean, I feel like that's probably the points. What'd you say? We never looked that up, the over-under, but that'd be about right. That's what I'm figuring. So, Sports Call will be back on the air tomorrow, 4 to 6. And Randy and I will be back with you. Brett Pritchard will join me at 5 o'clock. For Randy Lee, I'm Andy Graham saying so long for now. We'll talk again soon.